We oftentimes talk about how to get more and more people involved in downhill skateboarding. It's essential for having people buy new gear so that we have a constant flow of this, and also just so that we have people to skate with. So what do you do when somebody shows up for their first or second session? And more importantly, maybe what mistakes are you making when that person shows up? Remember, the goal of that person being there is not to teach them the rights and wrongs of downhill skateboarding. It's not necessarily even to, maybe even to keep them that safe. The first goal we should always have is how to get that person to come to the next session. Now, the first mistake that I see people make is a very common one. It's taking people to a spot that is too intimidating. You're showing them a spot that is extremely steep. Maybe it has some tough pavement on it to work with. Maybe it's got, maybe even has traffic. Don't take them to those spots. You might have to take a first timer to a spot that you deem boring, but to them, it's exactly what they are looking for. You don't want that person leaving the session where they've only skated the hill a couple times and maybe they were terrified the whole time, or even worse, they decide that they're not going to skate it because they're just too afraid to skate it, and they go, you know what? Downhill skateboarding is as pretty much dangerous as I thought it might be, and I've decided this isn't actually something I want to do. Another thing that I see people do all the time, makes me cringe so bad, is when people give first-timers, their first sesh, advice about their setup. Now, nobody shows up to their first session with an actual good setup. It just doesn't happen. We show up with cruisers. We show up with flexi boards. Things that are just not super great for downhill skateboarding. But even though they're not great, they'll work. And a lot of times people are very attached to their first couple setups. So when we critique what they bring, they take it as kind of like a personal insult. And it sounds kind of ridiculous if you've been skating for a while, but this is how a lot of people come in to their first sessions. Just let them skate what they brought, and you know, if they struggle, they struggle. It's fine. The next thing that I will see is the coach. Somebody that is giving unwarranted advice over and over and over. Maybe you see them struggling to do a Coleman or a push-up slide or something like that, and you want to help them out. That's fine. Give them maybe a very quick tip and let them get back to the session. It's not a coaching session, so don't give them a new piece of advice every single time they walk back up the hill. They're going to get super annoyed of you. This next one might be a tough one for some of you guys out there, but it's to have an actual conversation with them. They probably aren't that passionate about downhill skateboarding, so if the only conversation you can have with somebody is about new gear, new videos, cool stuff that you like within downhill skateboarding, one, they probably won't actually relate to it very much, and two, it's just not a very good way to converse with a new person. Maybe ask them about, I don't know, where they're from, or maybe ask them about another interest that they might be involved in. Maybe ask them, I don't know, maybe they seem like they like their car, ask them about their car. If you can get to the point in a conversation where that person goes, I want to go to the next session if this person shows up because I actually consider them at this point to be somewhat of a friend, there is some sort of a friendship there, then they're probably actually going to come to the next session. This next one it's very well-meaning. I know why people do it. It's the trying to force essential downhill skills on a person. It is very important to know how to foot brake, to carve off speed, to shut down slide. And maybe you could even get to the point of left drifting and right drifting. But if the person shows up and they just want to learn how to do a stand-up slide, then just let them. Don't try to persuade them otherwise. That's what's going to get them stoked. That's what's going to have them having a good time. And if you're just constantly going, well, you should really be doing this, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, giving them all those rules when it comes to skateboarding is not really the vibe that a lot of people come to skateboarding with. Maybe a couple of you guys do appreciate people giving you essential skills, but honestly, you can just watch Abuga's videos for that. You don't need you at the session telling them that. This last one comes in the form of when somebody actually asks you specifically for advice. Maybe they want to learn how to do a stand-up toe side. You can do a stand-up toe side, and you've shown it a couple times. They're like, all right, I'm gonna go to this guy to ask him about it. There are many, many technique steps to doing a stand-up toe side, like the angle of your front foot, or the placement of your feet, or the pre-carve, or the looking down the hill, or the position of your shoulders. There's a lot of different steps here, and if they ask you for advice and you just go boom, 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 boom through every single bit of technique, it's one, not even possible for your brain to comprehend all of that, but you're under a lot of stress when you're learning a new slide. You're under a high chance of injury, and your brain can barely comprehend one of those technique steps. So just give them one. And eventually, they might even get it. Maybe the third or fourth try. And then you might be able to give them one more. But you should not give them all those technique steps all at the same time. Choose one. A lot of times when we think of growing the sport of downhill skateboarding, we think of these big events, and they're wonderful. I love a good big event. However, I don't really think that's actually what grows the sport. I think what grows the sport is much smaller. It's the local sessions that you guys have once, twice, 3 times a week where a new person shows up and you get that person to come to the next one.